Let's now turn to betting markets and M&A with Tom Waterhouse from Waterhouse VC. Tom, good to catch up with you again.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to see you too.
Now, I mentioned M&A, a bit of activity there with Tabcorp buying BetMakers. What is the strategic rationale behind this? Because I guess there's been concern that Tabcorp has outdated wagering technology. Does this solve that problem?
Yeah, look, we've been focused for the last 7 years with Waterhouse VC on the suppliers of the industry. So we were an ex-shareholder of BetMakers, really liked the business because it was a key supplier to the racing industry. And I think what Tabcorp have done with that acquisition is not necessarily buying for the earnings, it's really buying the pipes. They're buying the technology, they're buying the global distribution, they're buying the global tote service they've got. And if they can integrate that in technology with all the assets they have, well, then they have a very different business. So the value in the industry has really shifted from the consumer-facing businesses, so like all the household names that you know, to really the suppliers in the industry. And I think it's a very strategic move and a very interesting acquisition for Tabcorp.
Does it also build a stronger global B2B business as well?
Yeah, it does. And look, one of the main things they've been focusing on is this global tote business and sort of building a national tote. And BetMakers had that technology. So that might be a big move in terms of having a national tote for Australia, but it also enables them to be a global tote supplier. And I think that's very interesting. I think if you have a large tote pool with a lot of liquidity, it can be really a product that globally online players will look at.
So Tom, I gather that Tabcorp has been losing ground to digital competitors. So does this strengthen its overall competitive position then, do you think?
Look, I think all of the B2C, like the consumer-facing business in Australia, have been hit by increasing taxation, increasing regulation, advertising restrictions. So they need to diversify. They need to diversify revenue streams, not only making sure they have services they can sell more broadly than just in Australia, but they need to do things a little bit differently. And Gill's come in and he's basically cut out a lot of cost. He's made it far more efficient. Now it's time, well, what else can we use this business? We've basically acquired all the customers in Australia. How do we take the assets that we've got, which Tabcorp's got some amazing assets. You know, they've got vision rights, data, they've got a tote business. So take those assets that I've got and how do I make that a global product? And how can I also use those assets and service lots of other players in the industry? So BetMakers, they do managed trading services and platform services for about 40 bookmakers. So Tabcorp's getting into that business, global tote business, as I mentioned. It's really changing from a consumer-facing business to being more a supplier and consumer-facing.
Tom, let's turn to the US. So prediction market volumes, I gather they've exploded 50 billion a month. This is what we're talking, Polymarket, Kalshi and the like.
Polymarket, Kalshi, yeah. Basically the World Cup was a huge thing for them, but NFL season is about to start. It's not like for like with FanDuel, obviously, because it's a little bit like Betfair. You can have look like there's massive revenue, but in terms of revenue, they're going gangbusters as well, Polymarket and Kalshi. But I think what's happened that's been really interesting is the big share price decline of Flutter, which owns FanDuel and DraftKings, and really, if you were an investor in the space, you were betting that scale wins, those large operators had those state licenses, could use the massive balance sheet to spend a lot of money on marketing, acquire customers, better experience. We've talked about it before, the flywheel effect. And so you really went, okay, well, FanDuel has the scale, DraftKings have the scale, they can pay the taxes, get the state licenses. What's happened now in the last 6 months, especially now that you can offer, these prediction markets can offer multis, which is the highest margin product for the bookmakers on sports betting, is that they've got this regulatory ability to take bets in states that DraftKings and FanDuel cannot. So they can take bets in California and Texas. But they also don't have to pay the state gambling taxes because they're a federally regulated financial product. So it's been a real game changer. If you're an investor, you're like, well, I've always believed that I should be investing in a Flutter/FanDuel or DraftKings because they're the scale operators, they're the leaders in the field. Well, now these new entrants have come in and you've seen Kalshi gone from a $1 billion valuation sort of 18 months ago to they're now $30 billion valuation. They're more than DraftKings and getting on the way to being close to what a Flutter's worth, the parent company of FanDuel. So it's been an incredible change and huge growth. People haven't stopped betting on FanDuel and DraftKings. It's just created these competitors that it's not certain who the winners are going to be in the US market.
So what Kalshi, as you mentioned there, so it's regulated US exchange. Is that more focused on the US, whereas Polymarket is more of a global?
So
exchange?
there's Polymarket that's global and there's Polymarket US. So Polymarket US and Kalshi, they have been able to take bets, where it was bets or a financial product, straight out bets, which was allowed, and they're now allowed to take same game multis, or where you can have Argentina into the Dallas Cowboys, into the Lakers, into LeBron to score. And so that's classified as a financial product, and it's able to take bets in states that have not legalised online sports betting, and they don't pay the state gambling taxes. So it's a big advantage, and it's accessing markets that a FanDuel and DraftKings cannot access. And so FanDuel and DraftKings have gone, well, we better get into this space. And for us, we're not sure. We don't invest in these B2C. We don't invest in a Tabcorp or a Sportsbet or a FanDuel or DraftKings. But for us, it's really interesting what pipes or what suppliers can win in this space. And a little bit like what happened with Betfair when it launched here about 20 years ago. The area that we think is really interesting is, unlike a bookmaker that puts up the odds and takes the bets, if you're a prediction market, the other side of the ledger has to be put up by somebody. And so it's not, because they're not a bookmaker, they're an exchange. And so for us, who is going to win that market maker race? Is it going to be the large financial institutions? Is it going to be the other bookmakers like a FanDuel or DraftKings? Or is it going to be the professional betting groups? And for us, that's very interesting, because you need a huge amount of liquidity. If you have a $10 multi on a 1,000,000 to 1 chance, Sportsbet doesn't have to hold the $10 million payout. The chance of you getting it might be 10 million to 1. But if you have $10 on a 1,000,000 to 1 chance with Kalshi on a multi, the person that's putting up and offering that odds has to have in escrow the $10 million.
Yeah, wow.
So there's huge liquidity issues, and who wins that is going to be very interesting.
And you can literally bet on any binary outcome.
You have to have a market maker putting it up.
Yeah.
So it has to be put up. But yeah, it's amazing some of the things they put up there and bet on. It's from politics to sport to what's going to happen on anything.